Hey family, thanks for joining me again in this latest installment of Pajama Pants Preaching. Well, today is the Saturday in Holy Week, or Holy Saturday. Some of you may have even heard of it as called Black Saturday. And that's not anything like Black Friday here in the United States, where retailers are very happy about Black Friday. The disciples back in Jesus' day certainly were not at all happy on Black Saturday. In fact, it makes me think about what were they going through. I mean, gosh, think about what had happened the day before. Jesus had been crucified. So the disciples witnessed their leader being killed by the Roman Empire in the most gruesome way possible, and the most public way possible as well. And of course, Jesus wasn't just their leader. He was their teacher, he was their mentor, he was their friend, and he was their hope. And they saw all of that dashed in just a few hours. They watched him as he hung from that cross and suffered and spoke his last statement and breathed his last breath. It was excruciating for them to watch, not only because that was their friend who they were watching, but again, because it indicated to them that they were lost as far as their future went. They wondered if they were next, possibly, in that. In Jesus, they saw not only their future and their hope, but they saw freedom from the Roman Empire. They believed him to be their Savior, the Savior of the world, the Son of Man, the Son of the living God. They had expected that he would deliver them, that he would make good on all the promises that he had made to them. And on that Saturday, it appeared like all of that was gone. They took him down from the cross. One of the disciples named Joseph of Arimathea, along with Nicodemus, they got permission from Pontius Pilate to take him down, to take the body, and to bury him. They brought him to a tomb, or a cave-like tomb that Joseph owned, and they wrapped him in linen and prepared him, and had to do it relatively quickly because that at sundown began their Sabbath, and they would not be allowed to continue at that point. So they wrapped his body in there, and then they left him in that tomb. Imagine what was going on in the disciples' minds. They must have felt beyond lost, beyond hopeless. Again, they were scared. They didn't know whether to run, to hide, or both, because, again, they probably feared that they would be next, that their future was as bleak as Jesus's appeared. They huddled around together. Some of them left town, and they just didn't know what to do. In fact, they probably not only questioned their own future, but they may have questioned who Jesus was, what he had taught them, and what they had promised them. Yeah, I can imagine that they may even questioned who Jesus said he was at that point, because everything seemed to have fallen apart that day when he was crucified. And they had that Saturday, that bleak and dark and black Saturday, to try to figure out what to do next. They were probably freaking out, to be honest. They were just unbelievably scared and disillusioned, not knowing what to do. But we know that all hope was not lost. We know what was going to happen that next day and what did happen that next day. You see, when we are in a place of feeling hopeless and scared and not knowing what to do, not knowing what the future holds, maybe thinking that we knew what our future was going to look like, and then something seemingly out of the blue occurs and we're just feeling very lost and afraid. We know that Jesus is risen, that he defeated death, that he rose from the grave, that he is alive again, and that he is the Savior of the world. We have so much to rejoice right now. You see, the disciples on that Black Saturday, they didn't know, but we have a great advantage over them, don't we? Because we know what happened that next day, that Easter Sunday that we're going to be celebrating tomorrow. That we have all our hope in Jesus, who is alive, who has raised from the dead. And so today, let's rejoice in that, remembering what we have to look forward to because of what Jesus did for us on that Easter Sunday, that first Easter Sunday. And so with that, let's think of this Saturday, this day, as one to rejoice in that we don't have to be fearful of our futures. We don't have to run and hide or feel hopeless at all, because we know that Jesus is risen and he is our Savior and the Savior of the world. So with that, I wish you a fabulous Easter, even though this Easter may look a little bit different for many of us, but let it not be any different in how we are rejoicing in the risen Savior. So my wife Jennifer and I wish you all a very happy Easter. We hope that it's a blessing for you, that you can stay connected with your families, even if it is not face-to-face in person. So be blessed and rejoice in our risen Savior.